Deborah.
Yeah, Deborah or Deb or whatever works. It's not really too.
Yeah, because my foreign pronunciation, the Deb is the easiest. So for those who are not aware, the Deb is like serial entrepreneur, restaurateur. Yeah.
We like to build stuff. That's right.
Founder of the public goods that includes Altia Network that aim to deliver affordable internet connection that is decentralized. Is it correct?
Yeah,
Um,
we typically think about Althea as a machine to machine microtransactional platform, and what that means is that instead of the sort of siloed monopolistic way of delivering internet and building internet now, we make open interoperable markets. That result in a net of transforming both the affordable and then also the way that people can invest and build networks in really exciting ways. So lots of really exciting things happen over there. Actually, we were building in an area where there's actually even active shooting. So we're definitely a gritty team building real networks and transforming connectivity.
wow.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, because it's been a few months ago and we were focused actually on Altia, right?
Yeah.
Um, how has been the last few months? Where are you building? I know you were building in Georgia, I believe, right? Is the Georgia as the country, not as the state, correct?
As
Like,
yeah, no, as in the state in the U.S. So we're primarily, I mean,
okay.
I think it's kind of also important to kind of separate up our corporation, which is Hawk Networks, and then Althea, which is the blockchain and platform. So we mostly, though, because Hawk Networks is U.S. based, we do see a lot of growth in the networks in the U.S. We're in 8 states, soon to be 9. 9 will be in New
Wow.
Mexico. And actually we're having we'll be sharing, we're having an on-site immersion training we call kind of a boot camp where you can come and learn about how to build Althea networks in New Mexico in a couple of weeks here. But then we do also have some networks in Africa. We're looking to expand to LATAM as well. And so, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, sorry for sticking to this, but like, just want to say, like, how expensive is that internet for the user?
Well,
Just like number $50, $20, $100 a month. Yeah, like want to.
yeah, so some of these are in the US, they have a subsidization program. So many of these are actually free for the end user for a certain
Mhm.
speed. So, for example, the Atlanta network, 50 megabits per second are provided at no charge. And then the government sort of pays back the provider $30 a month. And then if you want to get kind of a full charge, you're looking at anywhere between, $20 to $50, kind of depending on where you're at, what network is being provided, so it's mostly less expensive than you would normally find with a traditional provider.
And is it like is it fast? The full charge? Is it like
One of the main things that's really exciting about Althea is really what we're doing, though, is we actually let you choose. So they're on your router dashboard. We normally set your Wi-Fi password. There's actually a slider bar. On one side, it's cost, and one side, it's quality, meaning latency. So you can actually choose on a minute by minute basis if you prefer to have a higher, performance and pay a little bit
yeah?
more, or prefer to have that lower cost. Yes, and in most cases, most people are seeing anywhere between 50 to a gigabit per second, depending on the technology. One of the main things that's exciting about Althea is it's technology agnostic or hardware agnostic. So we do
Mhm.
fiber optic, we do wireless, LTE, lots of cool stuff that we've been building on the tooling on LTE, which is pretty exciting. And
Yeah.
so
How does it compete with networks like the is it Starlink of Elon Musk? The satellites, right? Like,
yeah, so it's a great question. It's one we get a lot. So Starlink is really just kind of another form of technology. It's satellite technologies, just lower Earth orbit.
Mhm.
So that, but it's still satellite, right? So it still has the problems associated with satellite internet, like kind of latency and jitter, these kinds of things, reliability. But Althea actually could work over Starlink. Because fundamentally it's a routing protocol, and it's that micro machine to machine permissionless microtransactions. And what's exciting about that is that not only are you talking home internet, we're talking also to the device level, to the phone, and then eventually, very soon, to IoT, right? Because if you think about making billing platforms for, let's say, your smart connected tractor, or the, your EV charging station, or your like a smart trash can, for example, you can't send it a monthly bill. You can't send your smart trash can a monthly bill. Like, that's ridiculous. So you really, like, this is the architecture, that payment layer that will allow for all of these different kinds of composable transactions.
Hmm. I kind of wonder, like, if this network grow, like, because this is public good, but public goods can be also profitable, right? So I believe that the stakers or whoever of the network i- is the kind of benefitor in the future. What's the market size of that? I wonder. Of just
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's really large, right? So if you think about all of the kind of being able to sort of monetize any connected
Hmm.
device. So, I think when we think about public goods, I think you said, profitable, but it's also about, like, it's this idea of like a core underlying sustainability, and how that revenue and that profit should be shared, I think, is more the ongoing question. Um, so, yes, I think one of the kind of things that Althea builds in, which we've also built kind of in Gravity Bridge too, or the Gravity Bridge community has voted in, is this idea that what's being sort of bridged, those microtransactions moving through the network, should also be shared amongst those that are securing or staking the network. So there's so I think that's kind of the long-term sustainability model. And that's really what builds in that agnostic and neutral platform.
Hmm.
Because when everybody wins, you don't have a Visa or a MasterCard saying, or a Stripe saying, well, we don't like you doing this, we don't like you doing that, this doesn't align with our partners over here. You have an interoperable platform where everyone can saddle in a neutral way. And that's, really that clear distinction of public goods and the sustainability. We're talking a lot about cereal in the comments here.
Yeah, I think they started before, and they are assuming maybe I removed someone. I don't really. But there is the disappointment, because I usually start my chats with, like, asking some personal questions, and the reason why I didn't is because I already had that before. So it's the second time, so I just, like, wanted to catch up what's going at Altia, which is not the main subject today. If you guys want to know something personal, so last night I was searching for some portrait image I can use in thumbnail. I landed on the Deb Facebook. I saw that she's the family person. She's a mom, I believe. Sorry, Deb. But yeah, I was surprised. I didn't know you have kids. I don't know why, because there is this picture like, oh, she's entrepreneur, she doesn't have kids, right? Like, and there you go, like, she's a family person, like, it's always the same, the vision for the women who are entrepreneur, they must be like single or something.
Yeah.
um
I think that COVID actually did quite a bit to sort of democratize this idea that people can have families and business as well. I mean, I really love being able to be on, like, video calls, or people are obviously in their home, their kids are
Mhm.
running by, being part of their work life. And I think at one point in time, we used to think that was so odd, right? That was very unprofessional, that never happened. But as soon as everyone was sort of in the home environment, and the kids were
Mhm.
just sort of part of that work environment as well, it really became a lot more democratized and a lot more accessible. And I think that was one of the benefits, silver lining of a really terrible time in history.
Yeah. uh,
Yeah,
well, I didn't really mean that exactly, but um
the internet.
like, let's catch up a little bit, because people would be maybe curious, how did you even get to start building the networks, because you don't really come from this background, right? Like, you don't come from crypto, I believe, from the blockchain, right? You were the business person, and then you kind of, like, went towards blockchain. When did it happen, and how did it happen?
Well, I wouldn't. I think that I've always, it's kind of since even kind of before Bitcoin, I think I often tell this story about folding at home, right? So I've always been very interested in the idea that decentralized systems could really, be effective and more and egalitarian, allowing sort of access in that way. So it really sort of married up several of kind of my hobbies. And then, when Bitcoin came out, I actually mined Bitcoin on a GPU for quite some time back in, I don't know, 2011, 2012, something, back when that was a thing.
How many did you mint? Everyone would like to know that.
What was that?
How many did you mine?
Not enough to be wealthy. Let's just say that. But we definitely did keep the room warm. So it doubled as a heater at the same time. Appreciated that. And of course, we went on to mine Ethereum with the GPU, and that was also, something that you could do. But more for us, it was always, and then for me, it was always about being part of something that was much bigger in a movement. And then I spent, a lot of time actually being an activist for open freedom of the internet, and really finding a lot of frustration, unfortunately, and being able to affect social change. And then I got really excited about things like there was a CJDNS, right? So you have Hyperborea, you have just a darknet, and then also I'm also a ham radio operator, so really into mesh nets, alternative networks, and so really kind of from a social sort of move from like just a hobby and a passion into how do I use all these things that, how do I stack all these things along with the kind of co-founders to solve real world problems and really affect that social change that I was looking to do. And so that's when when crypto became more than a side hustle for me.
What was the Gravity Bridge your kind of like first engagement as the founder? Because Deb is the co-founder of the Gravity Bridge, which not sure if I'm correct here, is the first bridge in Cosmos, maybe not, connecting to Ethereum, right? Was it your first venture, the actually like as the crypto founder?
Well, so no, so Althea was right in terms of becoming a co-founder, and actually the Gravity Bridge was sort of derived from the need to bring Ethereum-based stables for the Althea system over into the Cosmos ecosystem, and to do so in a decentralized and resilient way. And at that time, so this was 2020. There was work done on what was Peggy that eventually became SIFchain, but that that didn't really fit in the decentralized model that was needed for our application. And then, of course, it evolved. Gravity Bridge evolved to realizing that this open platform was something that everyone could benefit for. So that's really kind of the evolution there. And then along the way, we also supported that at least the early kind of period before Sommelier. And then now we've got Gravity. Of course, Cancel's an exciting ecosystem that we're proud to bridge to as well.
So someone asking how did you come up with the idea? I believe for the Gravity Bridge. Like back then the bridges were like still not really a thing, right? Everyone was using Ethereum, and no one thought like, hey, why would we use it in Cosmos? I will want to ask you about Peggy because it's a sad story with the SIFchain. It does seem that the founders were more of a grifters than which it was fun bridge to use. I really enjoyed using SIFchain, and it ended as it ended. But yeah, how?
Well, so how did we come up with the idea? So actually, I started the design of the bridge and really the exciting, sort of way that the batching and the simple design to Justin Kilpatrick, founder of Althea and the main, designer of the bridge. Brilliant guy, and I think really it's a testament to his long-term design thinking, the way that the bridge was implemented and designed. Jahan Trembach as well, also co-founder of Althea, also contributed some of the design contributions to that. But really, this is born from that market need, and I think that's what's so so beautiful about it as well, right? Mm-hmm. So you can build things for the short term, and you can really see in the design decisions that Gravity is not built for that. Mm-hmm. But with Althea, you're moving, millions of microtransactions for real, users of the internet, all kinds of different people. And we needed to build something that was resilient and decentralized. So unlike SIFChain or Peggy Bridge, where it's it was a multi-sig, right, and there were backdoors and things like that, Justin and I could step away from the bridge, and it would continue to build and bridge and be resilient and sustainable. And this is what's so exciting about it, right? So the idea was to provide that layer. At the time there was, Terra just kind of starting, but I think for our sort of a, kind of mostly US focused, we wanted the compliancy and the optionality of Ethereum-based stables. Also, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? There's lots of liquidity in the Ethereum stables, lots of, market on Ethereum, and a much smaller market on Cosmos. I mean, it's pretty obvious to say, okay, look, how do we, bring that liquidity over here? And so, I mean, it was sort of the natural progression, right?
Yeah, we do need much more of that. Like as of now, like, Ethereum assets are like one of the major liquidity providers for the Cosmos ecosystem. Sorry for asking that. Someone is interested. How old are you? I know it's sometimes a question for the lady.
Prerogative here on that, and say that old enough.
Old enough is because the Chaotic Rage said that you look young, but has too old as me. Not sure, like probably mixed, but that you look young but seem like experienced person. Yeah, of course we will talk about the different kinds of bridges. I want to go to the Gravity. Actually, when we started chatting about Gravity, like I'm just on Meanscant right now, and I was curious with the price, and since we started talking about this, the price like 200% like went up. Of course, it's not about the price. But we have already few bridges in Cosmos, right? You were one of the first. And first of all, before we even like talk about the Gravity, why bridging is so expensive, right? When there is the bridge from Ethereum to Cosmos, and I believe from Ethereum to other ecosystems, the fee is quite high. It's like $10 or something like this. Could you explain why this fee is so high, and it's maybe possible to drive this fee lower?
Yes, I mean, this is one of the mechanisms that we're thinking quite a bit about, right? Because we're thinking, what our kind of market is not just crypto natives, right? We're thinking, how do we build a bridge that's going to work for any kind of microtransaction, like, people putting $20, $50 through this. So really what you're looking at, though, is you're moving things from Ethereum, right? You have to, create a contractual opening. This is part of the reason why Axelar is so much more sort of architecturally more expensive than Gravity, because they're essentially opening this deposit address. So that they have to create an Ethereum transaction more than once. So what we did with Gravity is we said, hey, we can actually, and again, this is testament to Justin's, really foresight here, which was, let's batch the transactions. So essentially, if you think about a bus, right, and everybody shares the fare. If it costs $10 to move the entirety of the bus across, everybody could pay. If there's 10 people on the bus, they can pay $1, right? So the net, it's much cheaper for everyone. Or if you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait for the bus to fill out, you can pay the $10 and it moves through that. So it gives folks that kind of optionality. It certainly makes, smaller transactions more viable. And the exciting thing is that it scales very well. So the more transactions that are moving through it, the more it works well. And you can see that actually, that bridging volume, weekly rolling bridging volume, I just looked at it before this call, was 50 million. So you can see that it's just sort of working as designed, right? Well-oiled machine.
$50 million worth of assets, right? $50 million a week.
Yes, and of course that's the rolling total. So it's going on a rolling 7-day period.
Yeah, that's actually huge. So, oh, thank you, Chris, for $1 tip.
Oh, yeah,
That's so
appreciate that.
kind. So, um, just want to nice. So in Axelar, when you send it's instant, right? I want to send $50 from like my asset is on Osmosis on Cosmos, and I bridge it to Ethereum. I pay $10 or whatever, maybe 15. So if I send $50, I pay 30% for the transaction fee, right? And I received 70% of my assets. So it only makes sense to use this type of bridge if I'm wealthy person, right? I would assume. So what Gravity does, I'm sending 50 and it's joining the pool of other transactions, and once the pool is big enough, it's sending this as the one transaction. So you said if more people use it, scale better, because if there will be more people using Gravity Bridge, right? So let's say in 10 minutes there is $2 million worth of assets, you're actually going to get this bridge like as fast as Axelar, right?
Yes.
So the adoption speeds up the Gravity Bridge. It's actually opposite to like clogging it. It's actually faster the more people use it, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think you can actually, so if you actually go look at the transactions moving through Gravity Bridge versus moving through Axelar, you can see a lot of those smaller transactions moving through Gravity where you don't see that on Axelar. So
Mm-hmm.
the market is really speaking to us here, right? About what is sort of the preference. And the other sort of issue, and this is a bit of a trade-off, right? But we're thinking about there's rate limiting as well. So you can't, if you are a whale, you're not able to really move your larger transactions or to protect them from large market movements.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to this, because this is very important, but I want to know, because they're asking, bridges are the problem. Like it's obvious. Like what's the biggest problem of crypto? It's actually not even rug pulls. I believe it's bridges, and then being exploited by North Korean hackers or whatever. So could you tell why actually this happens?
Well, I think the traditional sort of architecture of bridges so far has been sort of the multi-sig approach, right? So, it's pretty typical for kind of venture-backed kind of companies to have to sort of move a lot quicker, right? Kind of goes back to those design decisions, right? They need to move assets quicker. They need to sort of control flows. And so they build what is, what we traditionally see, which is a multi-sig bridge. And so multi-sigs are a centralized point of failure. It's been that way for a while. We've seen the effects of that happen. And so, I think if we're talking about that architecture, that's a pretty kind of common sort of thought process. I think, if we think about bridges being essentially validator run or blockchain run, then they're as resilient as the blockchain itself. So it really then comes back to, how do you think about blockchain architecture? What do you think about proof of stake? What are its vulnerabilities? These kinds of things. But don't get me wrong, anytime you're using a blockchain, anytime you're using any kind of bridge, IBC, Gravity, multi-sig bridge or whatever else, there's always risk, right? So it's really, to me, it's about making that risk and trade-offs transparent to the end user so they can price that in and they can make the right decisions for them.
Despite those multi-sigs, so it's like few people control the keys, right? And if these people get, if someone exploits these people, the money is gone. But it seems it's still most popular approach. Do you know why people continue choosing that, despite maybe on the back of their head, hey, within 1 year we're gonna get exploited, right? It's kind of happening with every multi-sig. So why there are decisions to keep going with multi-sigs? Do you know?
Well, it makes sense if you need to control things, right? So it's a valve, right? And if you need to be able to control the rate of upgrades, if you want to control movement of money between blockchains, if you want to make sure your TVL stays in your DEX or your unregulated, right? Like these are control mechanisms, and they are what we see in legacy systems brought over to blockchain. And they're morally, whether you feel like that's a good or a right choice, people make trade-offs to build more centralized blockchains, or they decide to build the longer sort of, but you lose control. I can't stop Gravity Bridge. Even if I wanted to, right? And that I don't have direct control over what happens there. So if I'm a corporation, if I'm funded by, certain types of investors, if you're building for different objectives, that kind of control might make sense.
There is some question. I just need to tell people I will ask, because I also have some questions, so this live chat is me fulfilling my own curiosity as well. That's the main driver of them. So Gravity Bridge is not secured this way, right? Gravity Bridge is secured by the set of validators. So I want to know, do you have information on how big value of the asset right now is secured by your bridge in millions of dollars as of now, like as we speak, roughly?
So I think that I looked at the TVL in a June chart earlier today, and it was something like 115 mil TVL.
Okay. So here is the question. This is $115 million is now in the Gravity Bridge. Okay. The market cap of the graph is just around 10 million. I'm not sure if Minscan actually shows me less. Minscan shows me 7 million. I don't think it's actually accurate. So like how the Tendermint consensus works, if someone gets over 33%, they can hold the network. And if someone gets over 67%, they can completely exploit the network, right? So once again, the market cap, let's put number of 10 million is there, but the value locked is over 100 million. So here is now Don Kryptonium, who is very rich. I can buy up close to 20% of the tokens. Maybe it would cost me $50 million. I don't know. I want to ask you about this, and I will take all this $100 million in assets. Can I do it now? Because I like from the thinking, I want.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at so that's the thing, is that you have to look at actually the staked assets. I mean, and the practicality of actually implementing that. I mean, if you look at what the liquidity available is and what that would do to the price, like these aren't things that are practically able to be implemented. Sure, conceptually we can think about that kind of thing, but really the reality is that the staking and the incentives to continue to stake the token are such, right? As you stake the token, there are rewards in the Gravity Bridge community has voted in certain rewards on that side, so you have quite a large percentage stakes. And then the other thing to remember is the Gravity Bridge has a very large community pool. So it's still close to about 50% of all of the tokens, right? So we're really looking at, I mean, that market cap is not the fully diluted value. And you're really looking at just a very small amount of liquid tokens. So practically speaking, this isn't really something that, currently is a practical attack.
Yeah, but community pool is not staked assets, right? So it's only accounted for the staked assets, right? So how much it would cost? Is it even possible for someone to buy 67% of stake asset, or there is no chance? There is like simply no liquidity.
I mean, it would certainly make the price go up. So if someone would like to attempt this attack,
yeah. So the question is like, it's maybe it would cost 200 million, right? Because there's so little liquidity that if you buy 1 million, I don't know, price do 5x, right? So then it's like actually with.
Well, and I think that this is like, I mean, this is sort of the larger economic security question, right? It's sort of what we've all sort of, we've been talking a lot about interchain security, mesh security, all these different kinds of security. Like, what is the actual practical, risk vector here? And I think it's been overstated. But it makes sense, right? Because if you look looking to sort of, build sort of interchain secured zones. There's some kind of other benefits that would come along as well.
That's what I like to discuss, because people often manipulate, right? Because I mean, they manipulate rhetoric, because they would come and say like, look, this chain has only $10 million value. It's easy to be exploited, right? And it secures maybe $50 million or something. But when you look into this, and there's like, yeah, but it would cost $500 million to actually exploit that, because it's not liquid chain.
Yeah,
And that's the issue there, right? So this is always omitted. And when I look at Graviton, like I see like no liquidity. So like it would be, and if someone starts buying, like probably validators then are on the alert that, hey, something's happening. So it's still way more secure than multi-sig bridges. I some idea pop out to me, right? Would it be possible, because you have these batch transactions, to make it cheaper, more affordable for users like this? Would they be possible procedure? I'm not saying you're gonna do it, but if there would be a sponsor, right? There is wealthy guy, and he's like, I have $20 million in crypto assets. I want to create the pool, also secured by the set of validators or whatever. So when the people bridge the assets, instead, like the real transactions are batched, but you do the transfer from the pool on the instant, and thanks to this, kind of you pay from the pool, and then pool get filled back after the batch transaction go through. Like I just had the idea, actually something like this would be possible. I don't know, like,
I mean, so there's a couple different ways that you could do it. You certainly do like that. I mean, the current ways is that it's an open free market of relayers. So you really want to think about that. I mean, so these transactions are getting batched based on when it's profitable. So they move sort of instantaneously upon profitability. But what we see a lot is, these smaller tokens that are using the Gravity bridge. Maybe it's, Persistence or Checked or something like that, where, they may want to come in and just sort of run like an altruistic relayer, right? And sort of just batch them for those smaller transactions that maybe not are profitable quite yet. But it's really kind of how you set that profitability. I mean, the other kind of cool thing about Gravity too is that, it's not just moving Ethereum assets into Cosmos. It actually, Cosmos blockchains can have ERC20 representations over on Ethereum, which we're starting to see, more and more of. But yeah, to your point, certainly it's really just about like profitability of relayers. And that's kind of another kind of point of resilience, is it's, permissionless. Anybody can relay anything.
Yeah, and also the more people use it, the more rewards you get in, right? Because I opened my wallet now. I'm seeing it's a dust, right? I'm not even like touching this. It's a dust. Let's not pretend. I didn't even make a cent there. I don't have much graph, right? Like it's. I just like got a little bit to see what's happening there, but I see USDC, USDT, P-Stake. I'm like, what? Who's bridging that shit? And there is ramp, and there is ramp dodge. Like so you sharing like, could it be ever like viable model for the stakers? Because it's very little now, but like if it's scaled to like really bridging billion of dollar a week, that's a different story, right?
Yeah, and certainly the Gravity community can, to consent, more sustainable fees or whatever they sort of feel like. But that's right. So, by staking the token, you get the portion of the assets moving across the bridge in that token. So stake the Gravity USDC, UDTT. But also what's kind of interesting is it could be a really unique model for blockchain alignment, right? So if you are, Gravity community, which is why there's such a large pool, is it allows us to do these sorts of kind of, aligned kind of airdrops where maybe a bridging user, for example, Osmosis, right? So in the early days of the bridge, airdrop to Osmosis community. They used it, voted through governance and used it in the community, in their liquidity pool, right? So now Osmosis users who use Gravity Bridge will now benefit from that. So it's sort of that mutual alignment, which I think is really what the neat thing about blockchain mechanisms should be, right?
Yeah, I want to understand one thing, because Many people don't realize. I think Gravity is like up there, like as the number one used bridge, and but it's weirdly in the odd chains, like kind of like not those mainstream Cosmos chains. But when you go to this mainstream Cosmos chains, like Osmosis, for example, uses Axelar, which is very expensive. So I want to say to everyone, hey, when you bridge in and you're not in rush, you should go to the Frontier and use Gravity. But this is also like, there is massive pain because like when you go Osmosis and you hit the withdraw, it always sends like shit, like
Yeah.
you cannot access the assets directly. You can send the access directly to Osmosis, but you can, like, when you hit withdraw, like, you can't choose the assets from Osmosis. So the UX is like horrible. You have to like actually move it to Gravity first and stuff like this. But
Right.
why there is such a heavy reliance on Axelar and that includes actually this new DEX Wind, which previously JunoSwap. Why there is reliance on Axelar USDC, not Gravity USDC?
Well, I mean that's certainly for the Osmosis community to ask. I mean, it's not really. I mean, I am an Osmosis community member. I do have some Osmo. I do use the DEX. I do also like there's Crescent DEX now. Of course, Canto. But yeah, I'm not able to actually answer the question why that's sort of being precluded. That access being precluded. When it would be, obviously a less expensive option for people. I'm sort of the mindset that the idea around sort of contractual obligations and it seems very foreign in a blockchain environment. So it's a bit of an enigma to me why it was done in that way. But that obviously wasn't sort of my my choice.
Yeah. So many people think like, hey, Gravity Bridge is maybe not used, but from what I learned actually from you, is that Gravity Bridge, because it's public good. So if someone builds the chain, they can actually fork the bridge, and so there is a lot of hype around Canto, right? And I think Canto drives the most of the volume through the Gravity actually. So Canto is the EVM chain. It's just fork of Evmos built using Cosmos SDK, and they have Canto Bridge. So they allow to bridge the assets, I believe, USDT and USDC and wrapped Ethereum from the Ethereum to the Canto, and they actually use Gravity. So they forked it, right?
These Canto did not actually. They actually directly just integrated with. So it's a permissionless bridge. You basically build in think of it like a front end, right? And actually, other protocols actually use it in this way too. I think Persistence says, right, where you're just basically using a front end and integrating directly with the Gravity bridge. There are protocols like Sommelier, Umi, Injective is actually a fork of Gravity. Which is actually really quite exciting to see. It's really amazing that there are, to make basically like a Linux that like that public good, like you're saying, right, where people are able to either directly interact with it, and sort of build this permissionless front end, or fork it and use it as a module in their blockchain. And that means that many more devs are looking at it, that much more support is coming to that ecosystem, and really building something that's going to be resilient in the future.
So the Canto integrated, but they still name it Canto Bridge, right? But it makes sense. It's nothing like they have rights to do it.
Yeah.
And as they integrate, right, or when they fork it, those revenue share are still occurring to the Gravity stakers. How does it work?
Yeah, so integrations, yes. Since you are directly sort of using that. Forks, no. But certainly with it being sort of open source, we see that dev flow coming back to it, which is great. Yes. So of course, things withdrawing from the Canto bridge will accrue the fees back to Canto Bridge is Gravity Bridge under the hood, right? It's the idea. It's like Intel inside, kind of sort of popularized like underneath the hood, but whatever works for And that's why it's also so important that it is that neutral layer, right? We hear all these things about, different hub wars and all of this different thing. Well, that's why it's important to have sort of that glue, that IBC, that interchain NFTs, that the bridge itself is that neutral layer that anyone can use.
Yeah. Yeah, you said injective, like you meant the injective bridge is fork of Gravity, right? That's the
I know, I think yeah. And they were actually the first. This is also why Gravity has the claim to the longest running and operating bridge in Cosmos as well, because Injective actually launched before Gravity Bridge.
And they fork is secured by their own set of validators, correct? That's
exactly right. Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. I mean, nobody wants to fork a multi-sig, right? That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. You said Umi, right? But like, what's with Umi? Because when I'm on Umi page, I see the Ethereum assets they use as the collateral are actually Axelar Bridge. So what they do? What's the state there? Like, not sure if you looked into this.
No, I haven't much, honestly. I respect the work that they did. We cross collaborate on the Gravity Bridge itself. But I'm not sure exactly how they're set up or how they're incentivized.
Because I read that they were like having the Umi bridge before, but then recently I'm looking at the page and they actually assets use Axelar. So maybe they made some deal. I don't know, like stop using or they use.
Perhaps they're doing cross trade swaps and things like that too. I think that would be really interesting. I mean, ultimately we'll have more than one bridge on Cosmos, where this isn't some, fight for dominance or anything like that. It's about the ability to have, people be able to have freedom to move their, assets around as they see fit. And so I think, hopefully what we'll end up seeing is Axelar assets and swapping with Gravity assets. And, we have, more open markets and interoperability that just makes everyone win.
Yeah. Not sure if you heard there's another EVM coming, Barra Chain.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. Yeah.
I know nothing about them, but people say, yeah, it will be cool. It will be cool. I don't know. Do you know if they maybe plan to also use Gravity? I don't know. Just
I haven't chatted with them yet, but there's actually another EVM chain coming, and that's Althea. Wow. So Althea is going to use an EVM implementation as well. So people can build Ethereum-based infrastructure, telecom products, and things like that onto that secure layer one. So there'll be another one.
Well, it's your chain. I mean, you're co-founder, like you're a founder, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's just a little bit alpha though for folks that didn't know that Althea was going to have an EVM.
Yeah, just need to remind because some people come in. Yeah, when is Althea coming? When it's
very soon. So we just informed our Genesis set of validators that they'll have testnet instructions here pretty soon this week. So we should be launching, within a really short term here our testnet, and then that'll flow right into the into mainnet. So
how big will be the Genesis set of validators?
We're looking at right around 100. And Althea's had a long history, right? So we actually were, started in 2018, had some ideas about payment channels. But this is 2018 Ethereum was a different world. Token curated registries. If anybody remembers TCRs, that was a thing that was going to be part of Althea. So it's really evolved. And these set of validators have definitely been part of our Althea journey for years at this point now. So definitely appreciate the support they put in.
I'd like to ask you about Canto, right? Because it's so popular recently. Founder is Scott Lewis. I really like because he's also a Milady. Not sure if you and there is this rule: if you have Milady PFP, you can say everything you want and you cannot get cancelled. So I just like Canto because I know Scott Lewis is a Milady. But there is a lot of controversy. Like just asking for opinion. I know you are not Canto, but I know you are well aware of Canto. It has this very high issuance of tokens now. There was some some tweets recently that 10 wallets control like 50% of liquidity or whatever. And many people would come and say, hey, Canto is a rug pull or something like this. You have any thoughts on that?
I would suggest that folks go hang out in Canto. for a bit and join the community, and then make their sort of assumptions based on that. I mean, like you said, I'm not Canto. I do enjoy the culture that they've curated over there. I really feel, I mean, for folks that have been around since like DeFi summer and understand really that the beautiful movement that comes with allowing people to build with access to liquidity, with access to the contract secure revenue that allows them to share in the fees that they generate, and to be part of that, I think is really, really powerful. So to me, that's the message.
Is there because I don't know, did Scott founded something before? What he did before?
Oh, Scott. I mean, you could definitely look at his bio.
Wait, because my Siri got to. Wait. Okay, sorry, my Siri popped out because I clicked something. Can you repeat? Now it's okay, I think.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I think DeFi Pulse, Slingshot, things like that. So definitely lots of cool stuff in Ethereum.
Yeah, I admire him because he has beautiful hair. Also, like
great hair. Yes.
I saw he shared the Twitter picture last time, and he had like this hair. I'm like, I'm so jealous.
Scott Lewis fan club, but no, I mean, I think what's exciting, it is not a single person, right? We don't want to come in here and say it's about the leadership, because that's not what blockchain is supposed to be about. And I think so I want to make sure that we're not sort of developing into like we like a leader or whatever. I mean, it really is supposed to be about empowering people to have freedom and empowering people to be part of that movement. So I think that's where I'm at, is if those things align, then there's a lot of synergy there.
So Deb, there is this big conversation. Bridges are doomed, okay? But because IBC is coming, right? So there is this confidence that one day we will have IBC client to Ethereum, IBC client to Polkadot soon, and others, and bridges are useless. Like, we not gonna use bridges. I wonder if you have thoughts on that, or actually, or are you confident that Ethereum will connect to IBC client?
Well, so my sort of perspective is that, I mean, IBC is a form of a bridge, right? It's a light client bridge. And it's that, multi-chain interoperability. I think what I'm excited about, I mean, certainly I'm excited about how we evolve bridges. I mean, bridges will be around whatever sort of format they come into, because I do believe in a multi-chain, ecosystem. But how we architecture them, I mean, I think there's certainly a lot of positive things on the light client bridge that I think we'll see more of. It'll evolve probably more to that type of architecture. I think about the way we look at kind of Gravity Bridge is on the interchain accounts, like the sort of UX of what it looks like to be multi-chain. I think it's not necessarily binary architecture, but it's really about how are we evolving the UX to allow for multi-chain interoperability. How do we think about sending data, arbitrary kind of logic across, or data and messages across the multi-chain world, and what that interoption looks like. So I think what I'm really excited about is not only sort of the move to more secure kind of light client architecture, but also what does that look like for users to have cross-chain, for protocols themselves to be able to interoperate with other protocol liquidity. So I think it's just a natural evolution. I don't think it necessarily makes one kind of doesn't make bridges obsolete. It's just the natural evolution.
Right. But will they be placed? If that would be the scenario, is there a place for Gravity, for example?
Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of things, right? Like, if you think about the arbitrary logic calls happening at Sommelier, right, using their version of Gravity. We think about basically how that can act as a bit of a portal for Cosmos-based chains to have ERC20 representations, or what that looks like to have different protocol liquidity across
Mhm.
these sorts of things. So I think it doesn't make it obsolete. It definitely does
Yeah.
evolve, force function evolve things, which is great.
Yeah, I'm checking what the chains are supported by USDC natively, for example. And also, like, it's important to know that not everyone wants to use USDC, right? I mean, that's something that many people admit, that USDC is decentralized, Circle company, and I would assume that grifting and illegal activities will be big part of the blockchain, and those people will not use USDC, but they will use USDT or whatever is there, right? Like, so that's
It's an interesting thing, right? Because the Gravity community will have to evolve its conversation around that as well as the native USDC comes to Cosmos, which I'm also very excited about, right? So this is one of the things I actually was a huge proponent for. But perhaps there is. I mean, it's USDC natively on the hub, which is coming, perhaps will be a more centralized flow, and may not be the kind of the most free, right? Or maybe people can't have access to that. So I think that might be something that kind of comes to the Gravity community to sort of decide how they want to manage that, or what they want to evolve to doing. So I think it'll be interesting, but I think you're right. I think that's kind of the part of that thought. I mean, Gravity right now bridges a lot of USDT. I think it's like in the 25 mil or something, or maybe even 29 at this point. So there's a fair amount of USDT moving across the bridge too.
That's what I'm saying. And there might be a lot of chains, that will be bridging USDT because, hey, we are doing a little bit shady stuff here. We don't want to get blacklisted, right? And it's understandable. It's cool.
I mean, we let anybody drive over the bridge. That's kind of the idea. That's the idea of neutrality and agnosticism, is that, but again, like when I say we, this isn't my decision to make, right? It is the validators and community of token holders that decide how that implementation will go.
Is there a plan for native USDC to be consumer chain secured by the Cosmos Hub validators, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of this? Is it the right move? Is it right move to give yourself to the certain set of validator on the hub for Circle?
Well, it was, just a little tiny humble brag. That was my idea. So I think it's a good one. Because really it's about that neutral access to liquidity. So what we really, I think, that's my main proponent, more so than my own personal success. What we really want to see happen is that the Cosmos chains and the multiple blockchains have access to liquidity in a free and agnostic way. And I think having an interchain secured zone that's just sort of focused on USDC liquidity makes a lot of sense for that.
I heard opinion, like someone, what actually will be more secure asset? Okay, will it be USDC secured by Ethereum, or will it be USDC secured by Cosmos?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean by how you think about security, right? And they're both really sort of essentially backed by a central assets, issuing sort of organization. So I don't know that the distinction between USDC secured by USD or by Cosmos or Ethereum is really the practical distinction.
Yeah, because someone said like, hey, maybe some people, feel better using actually Ethereum USDC. So it's never game over. It's actually like more nuanced than this. I noticed many people in blockchain say the word nuanced, and I caught up on this. You are using this. My friend Jacob was using this. It's a little bit more nuanced when I judge someone. That's the there is the question. Can you please re-explain a little bit about this graph stakers getting paid in other tokens? How this exactly work? And from me, I want to know what's the percentage of the fee that is paid in certain token go to stakers? What's the distribution if you have the numbers?
It's two, so that you can look, it's determined by gravity governance. So if you want to look at the exact numbers, you want to go into the mid scan and look at the proposals. It's two, if I remember, it's 2 basis points. And there's a certain percentage, that like 15%, I think, that goes to the community pool. And then the rest goes to the body of stakers, in proportion to the tokens they have staked. And then the neat thing about this is it's people can pay their fees, not just in Grav, but also in the token being bridged. So if you're sending around $100 and your fee is $10 or something, then that $10 can be paid in USDC or USDT. That'll go distributed to the portion to the community pool, and then to the Gravity stakers. So when you go to claim your fees, you go claim my rewards, and then you'll also see all, like you said, you'll see USDT, USDC, you'll see the Wrap Doge, the Chihuahua coin, right? Like all of the different things that are being bridged. And so it's really, like I said, that's kind of cool alignment is. So if you're a blockchain and you want to bridge more of your tokens, you're actually getting more of them back by using sort of that alignment fee. And then the community pool will have an accumulation of stable coins, which is also exciting as well. So when we talk about distributing grants in the future, those grants could be paid to projects in stable coins.
It can be better diversified, right? You don't have to suppress the token value that much. Someone is happy. Like I just want to make it's not much, but it's fun to see it, right? It's fun to see it, and as that adoption grows, the revenue obviously. And the community pool grow. I don't know how much the community pool is getting in those numbers, but it's something cool to see. And I see no reason for me, if I'm not very rushed with something, like why would they use Axelar when I can use something cheaper and those fees actually get distributed to stakers? It's just fun thing, right?
We think pretty fun.
Sorry?
We think sharing revenue is pretty fun, right? Like that. I mean, that's the most fun.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, like it just look nice. You can actually engage. What's with the NFT bridge? Like, is it ready? Like, is it the Stargaze team needs to do something? What's the state of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to give a little bit of context, if folks don't quite understand what's happening here, there's a standard ICS 721. So there's an NFT standard on Ethereum, for moving around NFT assets, right? And so what has been created by the Iris, Stargaze, Juno team's also been participating. There's been a lot of different sort of cross-chain collaboration, is a standard for interoperable NFTs to move across IBC called ICS 721. And that's essentially, ready on a COSM WASM implementation. And then IrisNet has worked on a native SDK module version, right? Moving between chains. And there's actually a game of NFTs, sort of a gamified testnet, multi-entity testnets coming up. That's pretty exciting as well. So that's sort of getting, fleshed out and worked through, and it seems like it's getting kind of, closer to fruition. And then there's the Gravity. So the Gravity needs, so when you send things across a Gravity bridge, what you're actually doing is sending from Ethereum to Gravity to, Osmosis or something, right? And then there's an IBC auto forwarding. So it's transparent to you, to the user. So you're not actually seeing it go through each of those things. So what we'll need to do with an NFT is not only have the kind of like NFT bridging to Gravity from Ethereum to Gravity, but the other piece is that ICS 721 interoperability between chains. So now here comes to the fun part though, right? So there's SDK versioning, there's IBC versioning that needs to be implemented into Gravity to have that work with the kind of native module. So that's where we're sort of like working on the timelines with that. There's a little bit kind of timeline confusion about when the new SDK versions and IBC versions are going to come to fruition. and what's going to be included in that version is also somewhat opaque. So really, that's kind of where we're in a little bit of mud right now. Got the waders on, trying to figure out what's going on. But as soon as those things kind of become clear, then it's a pretty natural progression to sort of implement the CS 721 and then also do the Ethereum bridging. So that was a very long answer for probably what you hoped was a sort of question. I appreciate you.
No, it's good. It's good. I wonder, like, I'm kind of NFT junkie, and I wonder, like, I don't feel I'm gonna be bridging much. I just feel like I feel good with bridging assets, like the well, NFTs are assets. I feel good with the bridging, stable coins and Ethereum. I don't feel great with like idea of bridging NFTs, to be honest. Like, do you see people doing this? Someone mentioning BatKits, right? And it's like, if you bridge BatKits to Ethereum, will they be even popular there, right? Like, it's hard because it's like such a separate community, and also Ethereum is such a hermetic community actually that if you bridge the Ethereum NFTs to, why would you do it?
Well, here's a thought. So I think that that's definitely a really interesting thing to look at, because I think Gravity pretty much is market driven, right? If they're you don't see us sort of like building bridges to Polkadot where there's not going to be a lot of liquidity, right? So that's definitely sort of it is where we might pause on timeline here. But I think here's a kind of interesting way of thinking of NFTs too, because certainly on the Althea side, what we're working on is called liquid infrastructure, and we're actually making an NFT and tokenizing telecom assets. So your fiber optic cable, your RF spectrum, all of those things become actually tokenized assets that can move around. And for us, that might be something that does move around between ecosystems and have cross-chain marketplaces and things like that. So I think if we think about NFTs just as JPEGs, maybe that doesn't hold true. But maybe as the ecosystem evolves to more, different types of NFT assets, perhaps, right? Maybe there's some interesting things that can happen there.
What could be the different type of NFT asset?
I
do NFTs for the JPEGs. I just like collecting JPEGs. If the price go up, I just sell them. I don't care. Like,
well, I mean, certainly, like I think, for me, like I said, what I think of is what we can do with physical real world assets and NFTs. Althea is the microtransactional platform. What we're planning on doing is actually, having that NFT be connected in a programmatic way to that microtransactional revenue. That allows people to make asset purchases, have that revenue kind of come along with it, have that embedded sort of in the metadata. We can embed contractual references and things like that to sort of move around easier. One of the things with for example, if you decided you wanted to invest in US telecom infrastructure, it would be very near impossible for you to do so. But we can imagine a world in which people could crowdfund their infrastructure or have exposure to, different types of assets and be part of something that's, lower risk and longer term.
Yeah. I want to ask you if are you involved in the Cosmos Hub at all? Like, just a little.
Ron, one get involved in the Cosmos Hub.
Just like there's always some discussion, right? There is this grant program now and stuff. There is always something going on, but maybe you have the thoughts of that, because many people say like, actually, at Cosmos Hub is just a meme coin, right? It doesn't do anything. It's hard to make it do anything. And do you have thoughts on like what's the utility of Atom actually, like, or what's the place of Atom?
I think that Atom securing USDC is a great place for it to be as the neutral sort of liquidity provider. I think it's a really exciting use case. I also think I think there's something interesting in the validator side of Cosmos, because I believe that when we sort of think about what is a chain, who is the chain, You could probably say, well, the token holders are the chain. You could probably also say the validators are the chain. And Cosmos Hub has quite a lot of centralized exchanges, right? So perhaps there could be something very interesting there where, either the interchain secured zones or, other Cosmos zones have access to the exchanges, right? The marketplaces that exist in these centralized exchanges in a better way, and the liquidity from these asset issuance chains like USDC, like they're planning. And I think there's it's a bit like a feudal system, right? If you have if you're within a certain kind of castle, right, you have access to buying and selling in markets, and then if you're a farmer and you're part of that castle, that feudal system, maybe you're okay with being taxed because you have kind of access to all of that commerce. So I think that Cosmos Hub is actually in a really exciting and unique position to be able to, support more open commerce between the fiat and blockchain worlds.
Mm-hmm.
That's as an individual in this case.
Yeah, that's very nice. I hate Cosmos Validator set. It's like, is this so? But I tell you something interesting happened. Actually, the centralized exchange is dropping off ahead of because it's inconvenient for the interchain security. So the KuCoin dropped and they delegated everything to Stakefish. Kraken is dropping. They undelegating everything. So what they probably gonna do? They will partner with other infrastructure providers, right? And they will be like, yeah, I will pay you a little bit, and because it makes more sense for them than look after a few different nodes. Not sure what Binance will do there. But yeah, quite interesting things happening there. Could you tell me, like, if you could share some of the favorite Cosmos ecosystem projects and developments that are happening? Do you have your biases?
Oh, that's a tough one because the Cosmos ecosystem is really great in a lot of ways, and the tech is amazing. So I'll just share a few off the top of my head that I'm pretty excited about. I think Penumbra is interesting. If you follow them at all, some exciting work very over there. Also excited to kind of see what could evolve with the Babylon chain. That's kind of interesting as well. I always a fan of Stargaze and their work over there in NFTs. Of course, Canto, right? Like talked a little bit about the culture and how exciting that is to see. Althea is really exciting. Somewhat biased on that side, but really excited about the telecom infrastructure chain.
Althea is one of the first I actually find out. It was like 3 years ago when I was Googling, I think. Because Althea was quite early on, right? Like when it's what's being developed on Cosmos. It all like you know what Althea kind of remind me because it's very different blockchain, right? Because it provides something. There is another project very similar. Like I don't know if they are still active. Form. Have you heard of Form?
Yeah, we actually we've got some foam nodes up in our Althea network testing right now, and there actually could be some exciting cross collaboration in the works as well. Althea and Foam are definitely friends and fam, and we've been testing their nodes along with them and participating in that. So. Yeah, and then it's backed by a decentralized connectivity layer from Althea, so it's really kind of
Wow, I didn't know because Form is also Form is one of the first projects I learned that is on Cosmos, and then I learned that it's actually not it's barely active. No one in Cosmos knows about Form, I believe. I know they will migrate later to their own chain, right? Because now they are just ERC20. They just they have the tokens. Look, people are confused. Yeah, Form. There is the project called Form, and it's been building for years.
Yeah,
it's the decentralized proof of location, whatever. Like it's the location track.
Yeah. So basically, like the decentralized version of GPS, as I understand it. I mean, that's the very oversimplified version, but they have been building a very long time. They have a great technical team. They have the hardware. So yeah, I'm excited to see what their acceleration looks like. But a lot of times that's the case, right? People focus on building, right, not on the hype, and then people say,
if
"Where did you come from?" Well, I've never spent here, right?
So they are still like doing stuff, right? They're not going away.
Yes. No, they're still
Are they
still
gonna?
building.
Do you know anything when they're gonna have their own chain? When they're going to move to?
I would be remiss to release any sort of alpha without their permission. So I definitely maybe you could have Ryan on at one point in time.
Can you get me? Can you connect me?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And it'd be fun to even sort of share like what we're building in the field and show that this is like the Cosmos collaboration. It's pretty exciting.
And Foam is also public goods, right? Yeah, like many people you see learned about Foam early on, and they're like, I'm sometimes looking if there is something going on, but like not much happening. It's like
we just need to talk more, Don. Right? Like you need to have me on the show more. That's what needs to happen. That's where all the good good stuff's happening over here.
Yeah, like, and every few months I go check their Twitter. Is that I know they raised like 11 million a few years back, and stuff. And Mhm.
I think, I think truthfully a little bit of the the COVID and the supply line. So when you're building real world projects, right, it's not as that the timeline isn't as easy or as straightforward. On just sort of many people went and build the blockchain first and then build the product. Well, if you have folks like Althea and Foam that are really sort of product focused first, then of course things like supply line and things like that sort of affect it. But yeah, we should we should have them on.
Yeah, like please connect. I'd love to have him on. I probably even messaged them in the past or something. With the projects like this, what gets me concerned, because I think right away of Helium for some reason. Helium, the something similar to Althea, right? Like it makes me think right away of like subsidies and burning cash, and actually that the fact that no one actually gonna use it, like that's my biggest concern that is there.
Well, and that's right. And I think you'll see this with Foam, you'll see this with Althea, right? Where Althea is building a product that we're testing in the real world, real people. Thousands of people now have internet access that didn't before because they're using an Althea network. And we built a product from Althea and then moving that to the Cosmos, to a blockchain, right? I mean, it's on XDAI right now. And Helium instead said, if they basically the idea of if we incentivize people to sort of spray radio around, that eventually users will come. I mean, I think my kind of perspective on the incentive models is that, it's a bit like sort of saying we're going to go out and build infrastructure, for plumbing, right? I'm going to go build some plumbing, build these pipes. And then they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pay homeowners to unroll their garden hose and then turn on their water from their house and then have that flow into the street. Well, certainly some of that water would get to their neighbors, and there might be some reason why their neighbors would pay for that water. But for the most part, we're really not incentivizing actual infrastructure for networks. And I think that but on the other hand, if you're going out to build plumbing, it's going to take a lot longer to get the permitting, and open up the streets and get the guys with the hard hats. And, it's a much longer, slower thing. So, you'll see, of course, a Helium or a Pollen or some sort of like incentive-based network build much quicker. And definitely they're, mad props to their scaling and operations. They've done a great job on that side of things. But there maybe isn't a destination there. Whereas you go and you build actual infrastructure, it takes time. But you have, real lasting things at the end of it.
What are you drinking?
Oh, this is a high quality tea. Although in my SR71 Blackbird cup.
People very curious about that. You mentioned some of the projects you like, some projects you absolutely despise.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think if anybody's building and has built it, has done the work to build, I mean, I appreciate and respect that. I mean, I think if
Mhm.
um,
Can I
we're
ask
here
you,
to
there's this project also focused on public goods. I know you're a friend with them, called Region.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, wonderful.
and I don't know. Is the carbon credits a scam? Is it?
Well,
Many
that
people have doubts about it. I have personal doubts about it. Like, it seems the region is focused on carbon credits, isn't it?
I
Like,
mean, that's but well, I don't know that. I think Region is looking at how they can build that in a decentralized way, and I think there's some of the problems that exist in the carbon marketplaces like that now they're set up to sort of like address those. Um, for myself personally, we sort of the gravity community I think voted in a carbon offset as well, and that they want to participate in that. But I mean, really is each validator and ecosystems' decision to if that makes them make sense for them at the time. But I support. I mean, I think we can say that there's this climate change occurring, that it is really kind of all of our impetus to try to do what we can to make the world a better place. And however that looks for each individual person is, I think, somewhat of a personal choice, right?
mhm, yeah. Elon made tons of money, right? Carbon credits was the major business of Tesla at a certain point. I'm not sure it still is, but that was I think that was the main business of Tesla, actually.
You know what? I think the one thing that I maybe would like to comment about, like the Elon, is that he's done a masterful job at the sort of messaging and the coolness factor, right? People feeling like it's a movement, and then that really made kind of massive upsides in both kind of like his stock prices and things like that. So he did. I mean, he not only executed well, but a lot of what his messaging is, and so I think that's sort of an often neglected piece of what he built, was really exciting people, getting people to feel like they were part of something. So yeah, let's try to remain somewhat, politically professional here.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the older cars, I'm like old school. I like the engine sound and shit like that.
My fave is a 1991 Land Rover Defender. That's my ideal car. 110 Land Rover Defender 110 1991.
They don't realize what people really want.
Yeah,
Petrol for the win.
yes, and actually, if I, in my retirement years, I plan to actually build my own submarine. So that's sort of my next endeavor.
Yeah, like what I feel with carbon credit. Like I have this whole confusion. Like, why would we shut down so many of the nuclear power plants, right? And then figure out, like, if we would kind of rely on, like, if we would power the earth with nuclear power plants, we would not even discuss about carbon credits. And I think that would be my main point. Like, that there is like other solutions. Like, there is like cheap and affordable and clean energy out there. So I don't want to solve the issues of the,
I think there's something in this like idea of like paper straws, right? Like sort of idea of like, let's think about how we solve the climate by reducing plastic straws, right, instead of paper ones. Well, that's certainly does some good, right, doing a paper straw instead of a plastic one. But is it really meant more as a deflection tactic to the overall problem? So I mean, I'm fairly agnostic to the carbon credits. I certainly respect the work that Region's doing, but I do think it is kind of interesting on a macro scale of how we are collectively attacking some of these social problems. I mean, my main focus of work is on freedom of the internet, and that's where I feel like I can do the most good.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry for asking some other stuff.
No, I mean, the things I respect a lot of the builders
Yeah.
would, like I said, I respect that everybody's moving toward and with good intention
Yeah.
toward the right. Yeah,
I do hope I can talk to Region, because I'm probably missing something. I'm simple guy, so yeah,
perhaps. Yeah.
so I'd assume I'm missing a lot regarding plastic. I don't know if it's true because I heard, I think it was from Joe Rogan podcast. He had a guest, and there was this opinion that actually with the best thing to deal with plastic would be burn all the plastic. It would be cleaner and better than trying to keep recycle that shit. I don't know how much is the truth, but I was like, like what if, like,
Well, right. I think there could be some different ways of looking at things. But yeah, I think there was some from the Pacific Northwest, right? There was this idea of like part of the spotted owl that got everybody to think about, the spotted owl is endangered. And it was actually sort of a movement invented by the timber companies to sort of deflect from the overall things happening. So I do think sometimes when we collectively go to tackle an issue, and certainly as, those of us that are maybe lean toward more of an activist that want to be participating in making social change, it's easy to get into those traps that move us to and then in fact those are actually more of like kind of like almost a psyops or something like that, right? So it's just one of those things that I think we have to keep pragmatism in mind, but again, I'm not the expert on certainly not the expert on carbon. I'm from the internet.
yeah, I get it. Is there something you'd like to share at the end regarding gravity? Something like that's coming that you wanted to share, but I kind of didn't ask. Althea, gravity, anything else?
I think there's a lot of excitement over in Gravity now. We're seeing like really exciting growth. And there's a great community over there. We certainly welcome everyone to join us in Discord and be part of, the ongoing discussions. Oftentimes people participate in, development discussions and opportunities and biz dev, and so there really is just an amazing collective community over there, and welcome anyone who'd like to participate in both Althea and Gravity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. If someone wants to use Althea, let's say Maestro wants to use Althea Internet, how does he do it?
So Althea's tooling for connectivity solutions. So often it's really actually going to be a tool used by whoever's sort of building a network or building a connectivity solution. You certainly can, if you're in the United States, if you get an Althea-based router, or you can flash your own. You can go to GitHub, it's open source. What you'll have is actually really cool hardware VPN. So it'll transit and encrypted traffic. So Comcast, CenturyLink, whatever can't see what you're up to. Because net neutrality is no longer a thing in the US. And so if you don't want to share your traffic with Comcast or CenturyLink, you can grab an Althea router and it will transit through the decentralized Althea internet.
Will you go to Australia or too far?
No, actually someone is building an Althea network in Australia right now. So, if you want to stay in touch on that, or you're interested in furthering that effort, Althea Discord's the place to be.
Nice. Okay, Deb, thank you for coming. I think we covered everything. I hope it was educational regarding bridges and why you should use Gravity Bridge. I guess it's a good night for you. Yeah, it's pretty late there. What time is it? Past midnight?
No, not that late. It's 9:30, so that's it.
Oh, it's only 9:30. Wow, you're on the West Coast, yeah?
Yeah, West Coast. Yeah.
Right. That's why. Like sometimes I confuse, times in US so much. I know in New York it's already late. Okay. Enjoy your evening there. Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed. And
all right.
take care.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.